Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you a fall makeup haul update on some of the products that I bought earlier this season. If you haven't seen my video where I talked about what I'm interested in for the fall, check this video out here and then you can come back here to see what I bought and what my final thoughts are on them. I'm going to show you some of the products that I wasn't too happy with and then some of the products that I really liked. So before we get into that, if you're new here and this is your first time on my channel, welcome. My name is Sonia. I go by Sister Philly on YouTube. I really hope that you would consider subscribing to the channel today. I really would appreciate it. It really would help me out. And of course, as always, for those of you who are already supporting my channel and you're already subscribed, thank you so much for your continued support and thank you so much for coming back today. All right, let's get started. Okay, so I don't have a whole lot of stuff to talk about today, but some of the things that I'm going to talk about, I have quite a bit to say about them, so I'm not sure how long this video is going to be. If you're not familiar with how I do these videos, I like to talk about products in the order that I would apply them to my face. So I don't have any complexion products. I usually don't buy foundation and concealer as often as I would things like eyeshadows and highlighters and lipsticks. So I don't think I bought any new complexion products over the summer. Oh yes, I did. I did buy a new foundation. But anyway, for today's video, I don't have any complexion products to talk about. So we're going to jump right into some eyeshadow palettes. And the first one is the Emily Noel The Once palette. Now, before I share my final thoughts on this, let me just say that some people don't really care for first impression type videos because they think that you can't do like a full review and give a first impression at the same time. And I actually agree with that. However, I think first impressions and full review videos are totally separate. So I love first impression videos. I love watching them. I love doing them. I love seeing people's initial reaction to a product, which is what I think a first impression should be. So it's not meant to be a full review because you're just using it for the first time. So with that being said, some of the stuff that I'm talking about, particularly this one, some of the things that when I did my first impression video on this, which I'll link it up here, I do have different opinions about this product now. So with that being said, this particular palette, it retails for $20 and this is a collaboration with Emily Noel. Let me zoom out just a little bit. This thing is so big. This is a collaboration with Emily Noel on YouTube and Makeup Revolution. She actually came out with two palettes. This is the eyeshadow palette and she also came out with a face all over face palette. Okay, so this is what the palette looks like. I'm holding it upside down for the sake of the mirror. This costs $20 and you get 24 shades with it. And unfortunately, when I first tried this palette out, I was okay with it. I did have a little bit of trouble with one of the shadows that I used for the first time, and I'll get to that in a minute. But overall, I thought that the palette was okay. But now that I've gotten to the point where I've used all of the shadows in here at least once, some of them I only used once for various reasons, which I'll get into in a little bit. But then there were others that I used multiple times because some shadows were working better than others. But now that I've used the entire palette, I don't like it as much as I did when I first tried it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight some of the shades in here that stood out in either a positive or negative way. And if I don't mention a shade today, it's simply because it's like nothing special to mention about it. It wasn't necessarily a bad shadow, but it wasn't an excellent shadow either. It was just like a, you know, an average performing shade, I'll say. So before I get into individual shades, you know how a lot of times an eyeshadow palette will have a mix of shimmers and mattes, which this one does have. To me, like the star of the show in an eyeshadow palette or when you're doing an eye look, the star of the show is usually a shimmer shade, and then you're relying on the matte shades to try and like complete a look or complement a shimmer shade. I actually had like the opposite reaction with this palette. In general, all of the matte shades I absolutely love. There's a couple in here that I have, I'll say, a few negative points to say about them, but in general, I really, really like the matte shades in here, but I don't care for the shimmer shades. So let's talk about the matte shades first. This color here, Prayer, this is actually my favorite shadow in the palette. This is actually my favorite shadow out of all of the eyeshadows that I have, all of the palettes that I have. This is the one that I like the most. Like if this were sold as a single shadow, I would buy it, even though I don't really care for single shadows. I think that this is a good shade for me as like a transition shade. The tone of it works really well for my skin tone, and because it is one of the matte shades, I really like the way that it blends out. I like the way that it applies, and I think that you can build on it. Another shade that I really like is the color Apartment. I think that I wish it was a bit more cool tone, just a little bit more, but in general, it's a really nice dark shade if you want to like add like a darker color on the outer part of your lid to try and like smoke out a look or something like that. I also really like the color Love Tons, which is this shade here. This one is probably my favorite like colorful matte shade, and that's what this one looks like. I used Love Tons a couple of times because I really liked it so much, but I definitely used that color Prayer, this first one down here. I use that shade a lot because I really, really like it. Some of the mattes that stand out in a bad way, I guess, is number one, this is the color Hobby. Now, I'm not going to say that this is a bad shade. I'm just going to say that it just doesn't work on me. Like you can't see it on my skin tone. So I'm actually applying like 3 swatches of the color, is this Hobby? Yeah, the color Hobby. I don't know if you can see it at all on my skin, but it just barely shows up. So again, it's not that it's a bad shade, but just like the way that it swatches and the way that it applied on my eye, it felt like it applied, you know, just as well as any of the other mattes. I just couldn't see it on my skin. The next shade is called Midwest. That is this color right here. Midwest is kind of like the same thing, but this does show up just a little bit better on my skin. But again, I have to like really build this shade up in order to see it. And Midwest is a bit orangey on my skin tone. Like it's very, very warm toned. And just in case you're not familiar with any of my videos, I definitely prefer cool tones when it comes to eyeshadows. So just in general, I don't like warm tones, but this one, it's not so much the fact that it's orange that I don't like, it's the fact that I have to like really build it. Like this swatch right here, that's about 3 swatches on my arm, but on my hand rather. But in general, all of the mattes in here, the way that they look in the pan is how it looks on your eye, and I didn't have any problem at all with getting any of them to blend out really well. If I wanted to make a color deeper and I had to go in with like multiple layers, to me they perform just fine. Now the issue, my overall issue with this palette is unfortunately the shimmer shades. So again, I'm going to point out some of the shades that really stood out to me, and the first one would be Side Hustle. I used this shade the first time I used the palette, and I was just very disappointed by the shade. This is what it looks like on my finger. When I went to apply this to my eyelid, that's pretty much what it looked like. Now, in my opinion, I mean, I would say it is true to color, but it's just not as much of a pop as I wanted for a shimmer shade. Now, All of the shimmers in this palette, they were meant to be buildable, meaning they weren't supposed to give you like a very like extravagant pop. So like if you have any let's say like a Juvia's Place palette, you know how when you apply any of those shadows, they just pop. These were meant to be like buildable so that you could go with like a subtle shimmer color like this, but you're supposed to be able to like build it up to the consistency that you want. And in my experience, I don't care how much you build the shimmers up, they just never give me the level of shimmer or the level of pigment that I was looking for. So again, this was the color Side Hustle. When I went in with Side Hustle, I applied it a few times and I was getting kind of annoyed that it wasn't giving me like the pop that I want. So I actually had to go on top of it with another shade, that shade Grateful, because it just wasn't giving me, you know, the pigment that I wanted. Another one that really stood out in terms of not working out for me is the color Cupcake. This one, same deal. Now, keep in mind that this one is a bit closer to my skin tone, but this one is the color Cupcake. And I think I used this the second time that I used the palette, I want to say. And I was going for a look that had green mattes with pink shimmer. This is more like a peachy type shimmer, but this one was just so subtle on my eye that I ended up going in with another pink shade from another palette to go on top of it because I wanted like more pigment on my lid. So I had that experience with pretty much all of the shimmers in this palette. I do also want to highlight the color Eve Rose. I used this color when I did an eyeshadow palette bingo video with this palette, and one of the shades that was picked for me was Eve Rose. So look at the shade Eve Rose in the pan. And then I'm going to show you a swatch of Eve Rose. And let me see if I can build this up just a little bit. That's what Eve Rose looks like when you apply it to the lid. It's very, very gold. Now, when you look at it in the pan, it does have a gold shift to it. But to me, like I was expecting like a light, like a lilac or lavender color with this shade. And I was very like thrown off when I got this gold. So those are the three shimmers that I really did not like, but in general I just don't like the shimmers in this palette at all. I think the best performing shimmers in here are Capricorn and Top Story, but I think one of the reasons Capricorn works so well is because it's a darker shade. So let me swatch these two for you. So those are the finger swatches. And that's what they look like on my hand. These are the two that I felt like I didn't really have to build them up as much as I did other colors. But like I said, in general, I just didn't care for any of the shimmers in this palette. So if you're the type of person, and now mind you, I have seen other videos where people were getting other reactions from this palette. Like some people were having issues with blending out the mattes. So I don't know, you know, with pretty much with every makeup product, you really just have to try it for yourself to see how you're going to like it. But in my experience, if you're the type of person who you want to be able to create an entire complete look with one palette, unless you're doing like an all matte palette, I just don't think that you can do it with this palette unless you're okay with like super subtle shimmers. I'm the type of person who I'm like a one-stop shop girl when it comes to an eyeshadow palette. I want to pick up one palette and I want to be able to create an entire look with that palette. I also want my shimmers to like show up. Like I want them to be like the star of the show when I create an eyeshadow look. And again, I just don't think you can do that with this palette. Makeup Revolution has other palettes that are a lot smaller than this. And I think I have like maybe 4 others, and I want to say they're about half the price. This one was $20, and I think my other ones were somewhere between like $7 and $10. I think that if this palette were like chopped in half and it was an all matte palette, even if it still cost $20, I think it would be worth it. But unfortunately, the shimmers in this palette, they kind of like suck the life out of the palette for me. And the last few times that I picked this up, it was really just for the sake of trying to use all of the shades in here so that I could include it in this video. It wasn't really because I just wanted to use it. I was just trying to like get through the palette really. Now that I've done that, I don't really know how often I'm going to reach for this. So unfortunately, this is one of the products that I don't really care for from my fall makeup haul. So if you got this palette, like I said, there's so many mixed reviews on this palette. If you got this palette, I would be really interested to see what your take is on it. So let me know in the comments. Okay, I really think that's going to be like my longest like individual review, but we'll see. I do have two other eyeshadow palettes to go through. The next one is the NYX Ignite Machinist palette. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this palette because I did feature it in two other videos. I've been using this palette like crazy. I think I got this maybe 2 weeks ago, and I've been using it like crazy because I absolutely love it. In the Machinist line, NYX has 3 palettes. This one is called Ignite. They have another one called Steam Machinist, which is a very cool tone palette. They have another one called, I think it's called Gilded, which is a warm tone palette. And then this one, I kind of think it's supposed to be a neutral palette. I'm not sure, but let me see if I can do it this way and cover up the mirror. But that's what this one looks like. I mentioned in the other videos that I did with this palette that I think the color scheme in here is pretty much like textbook version of what fall colors look like for me. So let me swatch some of the shades for you guys. These shades don't have names, but these are 2 of the matte shades, the like berry tone shades. And then I'm also going to swatch a couple of the shimmer shades. Okay, so here's a couple of hand swatches for you guys. Again, they don't have names on them, but this is just to give you an idea of what the colors look like swatched. I'm going to swatch one other shade, this like peachy corally shade over here. The one that's on the corner there. I will say with that particular shade, I did feel like I had to like build it up a little bit more than some of the other shimmers. Now this is the first time that I'm actually swatching this gold shade up at the top. It's quite subtle on me, and part of that is because of the color of it up against my skin tone. I think the only time I used this, now that I'm thinking about it, was as an inner corner highlight. Now that I'm looking at it swatched, it does look a bit more subtle than that peachy shade over there. If you're into gold tones though, that may be an issue for you. I usually don't do gold all like that, so I probably wouldn't use that shade very much anyway. And also this like creamy white shade that's right here in the corner, I have never even tapped into that because I just don't see a use for it for me. But all of the other shades in here, I just really enjoyed playing with the palette. I think that they were very pigmented. I think that they blended out well. And I think that the shimmers and the mattes, they performed equally well when I used them. And like I said, I've been using this palette like crazy because I like it so much. So if you're interested in this palette, one of the things that I talked about in one of the other videos was that I was a little torn about this because it cost $25 and I thought that $25 was a bit much for a NYX eyeshadow palette. I got this for 50% off, and I do believe as of the day that I'm filming this, I do think that they are still 50% off at Ulta. However, I really like this, and I do think it is worth the $25 price tag, to the point where I'll probably go back and get the other palette that's called the Steam Machinist. That's the one that has the like the cool tone vibe to it. I think that it is worth the $25. I mean, yeah, that's a bit up there for NYX, but I feel like if this were from another brand, if this were like, what's another brand that's kind of like, maybe like Juvia's Place or something like that, and it were $25. I think the only reason that I have an issue with the $25 price tag is because it is NYX, which is supposed to be more drugstore, more affordable. But like I said, I do think it's worth putting out $25 for this. The only downside that I can think about for this palette for me is that it is quite seasonal. Like I said, I think that the color scheme is like very, very fall themed. So I don't know how much use I would get out of this like in the spring and summer months. I don't think that I would use it very often. So for me, it's not going to be like an all year round type palette. But again, I bought it because I thought that it was very fall toned. So this is one of those products from my fall makeup haul that I really, really enjoy. Okay, one more eyeshadow palette to go through. This is the Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette, and I've been seeing a lot of mixed reviews on this palette. I'm one of those people who absolutely loves this palette. Now, this is my first Urban Decay palette, so I cannot compare the formula to any of the other Naked palettes, but I will say that I really, really love how creamy and how blendable these shadows are. I've already looked into another Urban Decay, one of the other Naked palettes, because I really like this so much that I wanted to buy another Naked palette, but all of the other ones, like, they just don't appeal to me. So I'm probably not going to buy another one. I think it's Urban Decay that has like that beachy theme palette. It has like warm blues, I think, like I think it's called the Beach palette actually. So maybe I'll explore that one, even though I don't think that's part of the Naked line. But this palette, I just absolutely love it. This is another one that I have been playing around with so much over the past few weeks. I just can't put it down because I love it so much. I zoomed y'all in just a little bit so that you can see the eye look that I'm wearing today, because this is Urban Decay that I have on my eyes. If you're interested in a tutorial on this look, please let me know in the comments down below. Today I was going for something like very cranberry-ish, thinking about, you know, Thanksgiving being around the corner. So even though this is called the Naked Cherry palette, it does give you like cranberry vibes too. So that's kind of like the look that I was going for. So this is another one that I've been using all of the shades except for this one here, the second one. I have not even tapped into that shade. I haven't even swatched it because it just doesn't look like something that I could get use out of. That would be like the equivalent of that, the color Hobby in the Makeup Revolution palette. I just don't think that it's going to show up on my skin tone. So, you know, for the sake of the video, let's just swatch it for now. So it does show up more on my skin than that other color in the Makeup Revolution palette. Just by going off of the swatch though, it looks like it's going to be kind of like ashy. I just have to play around with it, I guess, but I just can't figure out like in my head how I can incorporate that particular color into a look. But I have used all of the other shades in here, and today on my eyes I'm wearing the color Devilish. That's the color that's like smoking out the look on the outer parts of my eye. That's this color here. And then the color, that dark color in my corner, is Privacy. And then that bright shade that I have on my lid, that is, what is this called? That is the color Hotspot. I purposely wore this palette on my eyes today because I wanted to highlight it for today's video, because out of all of the palettes that I'm talking about, this is definitely my favorite. And I made sure to use that color Hotspot today because most of the time when I pick up this palette, I do gravitate toward these shadows down here, but I wanted to see how that bright shade over here would work. And what I really, really like about this particular color, it's not white. It's like a very, very soft, like pink color. And pink just happens to be my favorite color. And I do think that it is a really good complement to the other colors on my lid. And I think it's a good complement to my sweater too, but you know. So anyway, I even used the brush for this Normally, I don't think most people are a big fan of the brushes that come along with eyeshadow palettes. I really like this brush. So I did use this side down here, the blending side, to blend out that reddish color on the top part of my lid. And then I used the pencil side of it to place that dark brown shade on the outer corner of my lid. I did have to use other brushes, but I really do like the brush that comes along with this palette. The packaging on this, I don't think I talked about the packaging on the other two, but I really like the size of this. Whenever I get a palette, I do think about traveling with it, and I do think that this is good for traveling. And just the overall theme of it, I just really like it. I love everything about this palette. This is either $49 or $54. I can't remember how much. I want to say $54, and I think it's the Too Faced palettes that are $49. I can't remember, but I'll have all of that information in my description bar. But however much the Urban Decay Naked palettes normally cost, that's how much this one costs too. So if you haven't picked this one up yet, this is something that I would highly recommend. So this is one of those products that I am very pleased with from my fall makeup haul. Okay, next up we have two highlighters to talk about, and the first one is from Flesh Beauty. If you're not familiar with Flesh Beauty, they're supposed to be like a more high-end version of Revlon cosmetics. So again, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one because I did do a dedicated review of this highlighter in another shade. This one is in the shade Promise, and that's what this one looks like. The one that I did the dedicated review on, that was the name of that color was Certain, and it's a very pink tone highlighter. I decided to pick this one up because I think that this is more of an everyday shade for me. So I'm just going to swatch this one for you guys. So that's what this one looks like. It's a very subtle highlighter, but it does still show up, and that's actually how I like my highlighters to look. That's not the highlighter that I'm wearing today, but it is quite similar to what I have on today. Like I said, the other one, I don't have it in front of me. I was going to swatch it for y'all, but the other one that I have from Flesh Beauty is very pink toned. And this one, I have been wearing this on my face most days because I just love it so much. Before I got this one, I was wearing one of my MAC highlighters all the time, and this one I think is just like way better than the MAC highlighter. This one is really creamy. It's like almost like a cream to powder formula. When you run your finger in it, it just feels like super soft and pillowy, and I really like it. Like, I just can't stop using this highlighter. It comes in 6 shades, and these retail for $28. I got this from Ulta. I don't know if they sell this at a Sephora, but it is available at Ulta. But if you want to see like a full-on review of the Flesh highlighter, you can check out the video up here. I can't remember how many cards I'm going to put in this video, so if I don't link something up here, then I'll make sure that I link it in my description bar. But again, this is the Flesh Beauty highlighter in the color Promise. And then another highlighter is the Maybelline Master Chrome Metallic Highlighter in Molten Peach. I've only used this like a couple of times, but that's all I need to be able to give you guys a full review on this one. I already had this, one of these highlighters in another shade, and I got Molten Peach just because I love the way it looks. So let me swatch this one for y'all. That's the hand swatch. Definitely a lot more pigmented than the Flesh highlighter. This, for me, would not be like an everyday highlighter. Same thing with the other one that I had. It's called Molten Rose Gold. I really love it, but I just don't wear it every day because you see how pigmented it is. It's just a lot more, I don't know, like more of like an editorial type highlighter if you're going out somewhere to a party or something where you really want to like stand out. That's what I would reserve this for. This one is just like a bit more, well, a lot more pigmented, a lot more sparkly, a lot more glittery than the other highlighter. Now, when I say glittery, it's not that type of glitter that's just going to fall off all over your face everywhere. it just has a lot more like sparkly specks in it compared to the Flesh highlighter. I picked this one up from Walmart and I paid $7.99 for it. I do believe if you go to other stores like Ulta or like a drugstore, it is going to cost you $9.99. And I think that these highlighters come in like 5 different shades. So this one, usually when I get a highlighter, I really like it. Highlighters are my favorite makeup product. So I rarely come across a highlighter that I don't like. This is definitely one that I absolutely do love. The only thing about this one is that it's not something that I'm going to reach for very often because, like I said, it's not an everyday highlighter, but I'm definitely satisfied with this product. Okay, and next up I have 2 lip products to share with you. The first one is one of the Too Faced Natural Nude lipsticks in the color Indecent Proposal. So this is the packaging here. And this is what that color looks like. I love this lipstick. I love it. I already knew that I was gonna like the formula of it because I do have this in another shade called Girl Code. And when I first got Girl Code, I was wearing it like every single day, nonstop. So the color on the bottom there is Girl Code. That's a very nice like everyday nude color for me. And I have been really searching for like a rich chocolate brown lipstick like this, and that's exactly what this is. I do have another lipstick from Maybelline that I used to wear a lot whenever I wanted like a dark chocolate brown lipstick color, but it's not quite as dark and chocolatey as this one. So I really like this for the fall. I'm really into like the deeper, more like vampy colors for the fall, like not just browns, but also like purples and like those cranberry or cherry type colors. But I was really, really wanting a deep chocolate color like this. And like I said, this one is like the perfect one. If you like matte lipsticks, this is definitely not a matte finish. It's more of like a creamy finish, and it has a good amount of shine to it. So let me see if I can get this close up. You see that shine that's on there? I think it's a bit exaggerated because of the lights, but this is like almost like a very, very super pigmented lip gloss. It's not quite as shiny as a gloss, but to me it's a bit more shiny than like your average cream lipstick. And I like that about these lipsticks, but again, if you're into like matte lipsticks, just keep in mind that these definitely are not matte. These have, I think, coconut butter or coconut oil in them. Let me see what it says on the website. Yeah, so these are coconut butter lipsticks. So think about if you have ever put coconut oil on your lips. I put coconut oil on my lips every single morning and every single night. But if you ever put coconut oil on your lips or on your skin, think about how soothing it is. That's exactly what these feel like. These feel just like so soft and buttery going on your lips. They come in a total of 10 different shades. These are definitely the 2 that caught my eye, but they have a whole bunch of other colors in here that I think are very appealing to me. So I wouldn't be surprised if I got a couple of more in here. I would really, really recommend these. I'm really satisfied with these. And if you're interested, they cost $22 each, and I got mine from Ulta. And my last product that I want to share with you is the Makeup Revolution Lip Topper in the color Exquisite. I also kind of talked about this in my, I think it was my birthday haul video. I'm not sure. But this is another product that I absolutely love. And this one is described as a duochrome sheer pink with cool silver. One thing I'll say about this is like way more silver than it is pink. It is pink in here, but like I see a lot more silver and hardly any pink. So up at the top, that is a swatch of the color Exquisite. Now, in terms of the shade alone, this is quite different from the Fenty Beauty lip gloss. However, in terms of how it feels, how it wears on the lips, I think they are very, very similar. So just taking a look at the packaging here, I'm pretty sure that this was meant to be a dupe for Fenty Beauty. Maybe not necessarily this shade for Gloss Bomb, because this does come in 2 other shades. But I think that that's kind of like what they were going for, and we all know that Makeup Revolution is good for trying to dupe other brands. If you're looking for a less expensive version of the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb, I do think that this would be a good product to try out. They do have another one called, I think it's called Luxurious, and I do have that one too, but I don't have it in front of me. Yeah, the color Luxurious is supposed to have a sheer pink with gold glitter in it. To me, the color Luxurious is just like way too gold for my liking. But they also have another one called Fortune, which is iced silver shimmer. So if you like the one, the Fenty Beauty Diamond Milk, which I don't have, just looking at the picture here, I believe that this is probably meant to dupe Diamond Milk. I don't consider this like a full-on dupe for Gloss Bomb, but I do think it is quite similar. So again, if you're looking for a more affordable option to that, I would try this out. This one retails for $6, and I got these from Ulta, but of course they're also available on Revolution's website. So those are all of the products that I wanted to share with y'all today. If I talked about something in my makeup haul wish list video that I didn't mention here, it's either because I didn't pick it up, I decided not to buy it, or maybe I did get it, but I just haven't used it enough to be able to do like a full-on review for you. So if you have any of these products, I'm very curious to know how you like it or how you don't like it. So please let me know in the comments. I really hope that y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know by giving me a thumbs up. And I hope to see y'all back for my next one. Until then, take care. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.